I arrived at my hotel about 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. I only had 24 hours to visit Boston, and it had been a dream of mine to take the Freedom Trail. This is the Boston Commons, and they have bicycles available for rent that you can just take from one point to another in the city. The Boston Commons was established in the 1600s as a commonplace park for people to hang out, and it was taken over by the British as their headquarters in Boston during the American Revolution and just prior to the shot heard around the world. This is the old Massachusetts State House, and there's an older one down around the corner. This entrance was named after General Hooker, and there's a word in our vocabulary that came from his name. This is a cemetery that's in the church across from the old Commons. It's very Gothic-looking skulls on these old tombstones. A lot of our patriots are buried there. This is John Hancock. That's a grave. Signer of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Paul Revere was buried here. He lived just around the corner, and of course, Patriot brewer Samuel Adams. The entire trail is marked by these medallions and by a red brick line you can follow for several miles through the city. This is the old Common House. This is where Sam Adams got in that pulpit and incited the Boston Tea Party, one of the events that kicked off the revolution. The other thing that happened was right here at the Common House, where the Boston Massacre took place. This is the site where the innocent civilians were killed by the British. This is the oldest tavern in America, the Bell in Hand Tavern, and that's probably where a lot of our patriots got together and had a beer to talk about stuff. It's right around the corner from this, Paul Revere's house. Paul Revere lived in this neighborhood, worked in this neighborhood, and when duty called, he had to go warn the colonists that the British were coming from his house so you could see the Old North Church. This is some of his handiwork. He built this mortar, and he also built this bell, which is very similar to the Liberty Bell, and this is a rare photograph of the inside of his home. This is hearth right there. That's the back side of the house. This is the street that he would have come down on his horse. He would have gone down the street, turned left this corner, and right up the street is the Old North Church. This is what you would have seen. There would have been lanterns lit up in that to let us know that the British were coming, or by land to by sea. Across from this church is the hill overlooking Boston Harbor, where the British set up before the Battle of Bunker Hill, the first battle of the American Revolution that was organized. Across the bay is Old Ironsides USS Constitution. It is the oldest commissioned ship in the American fleet. It is still seaworthy today, and you can visit it and see the old cannons just as they were during the days of the Revolutionary War and after. You can imagine what it must have been like to be on this moving boat having to fire this old cannon, and that's what they would have seen. Now, this is the Bunker Hill, where the first battle, organized battle of the Revolution took place. We were defeated, but we had a moral victory, having taken out more British than we lost in American soldiers. It was a bloody battle, and we were outgunned, outnumbered, and didn't have a lot of powder. Back across the bridge, I went through Little Italy. They were having a festival, and I stopped for a beer at the Bell in Hand Tavern. Had a Sam Adams Patriot beer before heading off to Fenway Park to see the Boston Red Sox. My daughter was a Red Sox in coach pitch in 2011, and she couldn't be here with me, but I brought her baseball card to Fenway, and I watched as the Boston Red Sox defeated the Kansas City Royals, and it was a great game. And I enjoyed walking around outside the stadium in the shopping area. But of course, then it was time to go to Cheers. And I was hoping that everybody would know my name, but sadly, nobody did because I am from California, not from Boston. But they didn't actually shoot the show here. This is the bar that inspired the writers to write about it. And they did build a set upstairs that was used for the final episode, and of course I had to have a beer with my buddy Norm, which made it all worthwhile. After a long day, I had to head back to my hotel. This is the church across the way from my hotel. I stayed at the Boston Park Plaza. It's a beautiful old Art Deco hotel, at least 100 years old, and very well maintained. I felt like it was in original condition, and had been probably stayed at with a lot of people over the years in history, being so close to the Boston Commons. So the greatest thing I did was go out to the Minuteman Visitor Center and on to the Old North Bridge and follow the trail from where the shots heard around the world, the first shot heard around the world, was fired, and that was a house where Paul Revere would have been stopping along his way to warn them the British were coming. And this is the old colonial inn that was around prior to the Revolution. It was built in 1716 in the city of Concord, which is this beautiful, quaint little town on the way to Lexington, where, of course, the first shot was fired. And here's the Old North Bridge as it would have stood back in the day. And this was the American side, and the British would have come down from this meadow, or the colonists would have come down from that meadow and opened fire on the British. The British would have been on the other side. This is what the colonists would have seen as they were coming up on the British who were holding the bridge. And this is the river that would have read that day after the battle. And it was the colonists that were fired upon by the British. It was a warning shot from a smooth bore barrel like this one from a Brown Bess that missed and actually hit a colonist who returned fire and killed these British soldiers that are buried here with their Pennsylvania rifles. And the colonists came out all along this road back to Boston and ambushed the British from behind these rock walls. And it inspired me to go out and get my own Pennsylvania rifle.
Alright, bullseye at 100 yards. Third target from the left. With this circa 1750s version of the Kentucky/Pennsylvania long rifle with a 50
that's 24
caliber
hours
ball.
in Boston.
Not bad.
I was a witness.
That's right.